Welcome to today's live discussion from Bhagavad Gita as it is. At the moment we are on chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, and we have covered up to verses 12 so far. And Krishna has described the Kshetra Jana and the Jnana, which were the questions asked in the first verse of this chapter. And now Krishna is going to describe the Gyayam, which is the object of the knowledge. Just to give you a recall, Kshetra Jana was the spirit soul, Kshetra is the body, and Jnana, as you know, is the knowledge. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karati vachalam pangam langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dinatayanam Paramanandam Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. I hope that's it. Verse 13. Gyayam yattat pravakshyami yajgya tvamritam shanute anademat paramam brahmana satanna saduchyate. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Verse 14. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvato kshishiro mukham sarvatah shruti malloke sarvamavritya tishtati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way the supersoul exists, pervading everything. Verse 15. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. The supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses, he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Verse 16. Bahirantascha bhutanam charamam charamevacha sukshmatva vatad vigyayam durastham chantike chatat. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. Verse 17. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu avibhaktamiva cha sthitam bhuta bhartri cha tajkeyam krasishnu prabhavishnu cha. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one, although he is the maintainer of every living entity. It is to be understood that he devours and develops all. Verse 18. Jyotishamapi tajyostistamasaha paramuchyate jnanam gyayam jnanagamyam ridhi sarvaste vishthitam. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Verse 19. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam gyayam choktam samasatah madbhakta et dvigyaya madbhavayo papadyate. Thus the field of activities, that is the body, knowledge and the knowable, have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So Krishna is continuing to answer the questions which Arjuna had put forward in the first verse of this chapter. Now Krishna is going to answer all about the Gyayam, that is the object of the knowledge. It's in these verses 13 to 19. So understanding the world around us, which is of course it's all materialism around us, isn't it? And looking outward is pratyaksha. What we see pratyaksha is the material nature around us. And upwards is the Shabda. Shabda is the spirituality based on revelation. Looking inwards, what do we get? It's called Anuman, and it's all about the psychology. Now Krishna is explaining the knower of the field. He has explained the field of the activities, the knower of the field. He's also explained the knowing the knower of the field of activities. And now he's going to explain the knowable. First the soul and the super soul. So it may seem like repetitive because all this has been explained in the previous chapters as well. But it is explained in a little bit different way, we can say, because it's Arjun's question, so Krishna has to answer them. So by the knowledge of the soul and super soul, we can understand the life, and super soul and soul has been explained before as well. Soul is eternal. Second chapter was all telling us about it. And our souls are as old as the Lord, because we are coming from the Paramatma. We are part and parcel of it. So we cannot put a date on our souls, that when it was when the Jivatma began its journey. Na jayate mriyate na vipaschit, Kathopanishad says. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge. This is from 1st Canto 2.18. And from the Kathopanishad, the Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.16 also tells it. So super soul to be Pradhan Kshetra Jana Patir Guneshaha, the chief knower of the body and the master of the three modes of material nature. And Smriti also calls it Dasha Bhuto Harer Eva Nanya Shaveva Kadachana. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. And Lord Chaitanya also confirms it in the teachings. So previously we have been hearing the Brahman in this verse in relation to the therefore Prabhupada is telling us that in this verse the Brahman is mentioned in relation to the individual soul. It is applied to the individual living entity. It is to be understood that he is Vijnana Brahma as opposed to Ananda Brahma. Ananda Brahma is the Supreme Brahman, personality of Godhead. So we are Vijnana Brahma. Or the Vigyan Brahma, because in Hindi we say like that, in Sanskrit this is Vijnana. In text 14, Krishna is telling Arjun that everywhere are Krishna's hands and legs, Krishna's eyes, heads, faces, and his ears are also everywhere. In this super soul is everywhere, pervades everywhere, and exists in everything, which Krishna has confirmed in early chapters as well, that he is the source of everything. In everything we see moving or non-moving, Lord pervades. So Lord is pervading in form, and in the Lord exists all the living entities. Lord had shown the universal form, the Virat Rup earlier on. That was confirmed to Arjun. And Lord pervades in everyone, beginning from the Brahma, who has been designated to create this, populate this material world, down to the little ants. Lord pervades in everything. And Lord is existing in everyone as super soul as well, and super soul is pervading everywhere and in everything. We must remember that the Lord is different than the individual soul. Individual soul, though part and parcel of Krishna, is separate from the Lord. Our hands can only do the actions of the hands, or eyes can only do the actions of the eyes. But in the case of Lord, eyes can do everything which legs can do, arms can do, and mouth can do everything. So that is why when we offer bhoga, we know that Lord is only, just by glancing at our bhoga, Lord is accepting it. Lord doesn't have to eat it with the mouth like we do. So the way Lord's limbs are, we cannot understand it properly because we haven't got that kind of intelligence. He can unlimitedly extend his hands. We cannot. And his limbs are everywhere. So we can understand that whenever something is offered to Lord, Lord is so far away, but still Lord can accept it. So God is omnipotent. In Brahma Samhita 5.37 it is stated, Golok eva nivasti akhilatma bhuta. He is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet or the spiritual planet. God is all-pervading, and the individual soul cannot claim. We cannot claim that we are all-pervading, that we are everywhere. So Supreme Soul has been described in this verse number 14, which is Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead. We are individual soul. We are not the Supreme Souls. In verse 15, Krishna says that Super Soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all modes of material nature. So Lord is the source of all the senses of all the living entities, and those senses are not material senses like us, like we have. They are transcendental, and they are spiritual, and ours are conditioned because we are covered by the material elements, or the material energy has got the grip on our senses and our activities performed by our senses. So Lord's senses are nirguna, that means without the effect of any modes of nature, whereas ours are guna. We are bound by the three gunas, the three ropes, which are three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And Lord is the source of our all activities. Apani pado javano grahita. In 3.19 Shweta Avatar Upanishad, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands which are materially contaminated, but he has hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the super soul. Lord has got no material eyes, but he has eyes, otherwise how could he see? He sees the past, present, and future, and he lives within the heart of all the living beings. He knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and he is also awaiting for us in the future as well. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. God can travel through everywhere, through the spiritual sky, because God has got spiritual legs. His eyes, his legs, his hands, everything are spiritual and not affected by the material nature. And when Lord wants to appear, he appears through his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy. He doesn't need a material body like we have, made of the 5 elements, air, water, earth, sky, ether. And we get contaminated by the material energy. Lord doesn't, because material energy belongs to Lord. Lord is Satchid Anand Vigraha. He is the embodiment. His whole embodiment is spiritual. He is eternal form, and he is full of opulence. He's full of wealth. He's full of happiness. He's blissful all the time. And these are some symptoms of the Lord. In verse 16, there are some more contradictions, just like 15, where we saw that we know legs to just walk on under the influence of gravity on a surface, but in Lord's case, it's completely different. And in 16th verse as well, Lord tells some more attributes that supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving, because he's subtle. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. So we know from the Vedas that Narayan, the Supreme Person, is residing both inside and outside of every living entity. Lord is present in the material and also in the spiritual world. Though Lord is far, far away from us, very far away, but Lord is very near to us as well, as the super soul, where he is residing in our hearts next to our own souls. So these are some contradictions which are continuing from verse 15. Lord is telling us through Arjun, he's answering Arjun's question about the object of knowledge. So who is the object of knowledge? Object of knowledge is the Lord himself. And in the Kathopanishad, it says in first canto 2.21, Asino duram vrajati shayano yati sarvataha. Lord is always engaged in transcendental bliss. We cannot understand that how the Lord is enjoying all his opulence, all his Aishwarya, and we cannot understand or see him with our material senses. So in the Vedic language, it is said to understand him, we cannot understand Lord through our material senses. Only purified mind is going to help us to understand the opulences of the Lord and the devotional service. When we'll be conscious of Krishna and perform the devotional service, then it is going to help us. In 11.54, Bhagavad Gita, Lord confirms that he can only seen and understood by devotional service. Bhaktya tav ananyaya shakyaha. In verse 617, this continues, this contradictory attributes. Although the Supreme Soul, Super Soul, appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of all living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. So, confirmed, Lord is in our hearts as Super Soul, and that means that Lord is divided into all of us, all the living entities, that Lord is there. Lord is divided, but still Lord is one. Achinta bhed abhed. We have to understand it like that. Lord is divided. His presence is in everything, every atom, every person. Still, Lord is one. And Lord is omnipotent. Lord, in the 11th chapter, Lord told Arjun that look, he had come to devour all the assembled warriors in the Kurukshetra, and he would do that in the form of time. So Lord develops everyone, and in the form of time, Lord devours everyone. Lord consumes everything. Lord has created as time as well, and in time. So where there is creation, there is maintainer, there is annihilator or the destroyer. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanati abhisham vishanti tad brahma tad vijinasva. This is from the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1, that Lord is the origin of everything, and after creation everything rests in Lord's omnipotence, and after annihilation, after everything is destroyed, everything returns to Lord, to rest in Lord until next time when everything is created again. And in verse 18, these contradictory activities Lord continues to tell to Arjun. Lord says that object of the knowledge is someone's body. Goal of knowledge is, for example, object of knowledge is a patient's body. Okay, this is the kind of analogy you can say. And goal of the knowledge is to get cured. So Lord is a source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond darkness of matter and is unmanifested. Lord is the knowledge. Lord is the object of knowledge, and He is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. So Atma and Paramatma and their relationship, knowing this knowledge leads to liberation for a person. As we know, in the world, the Brahma Jyoti, or the spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material elements. Therefore, in this material world, we require the assistance of the light sources, that is the sun and the moon, electricity. But in spiritual world, you don't need all this. Everything is illuminated all the time. Lord is like the sun, who is eternally luminous. Aditya Varnam Tamasaha Parastat. This is from the Shvetashva Avatar Upanishad 3.8. Lord is beyond the darkness of this material world. Lord's knowledge is transcendental. Tamha Devam Atma Buddhi Prakasham Mumukshur Vaye Sharanam Aham Prapadye. One must surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Lord if he wants the liberation. As far as the goal of ultimate knowledge is concerned, it is also confirmed that Tam Eva Vidhi Vati Mrityum Eti. Only by knowing him one can surpass the boundary of birth and death. This is again from the Shvetash Avatar Upanishad 3.8. Lord is in all of our heart, as we said, as super soul, as a supreme controller, and Lord's limbs are everywhere, and this cannot be said of the individual soul. We cannot claim that we have got the same qualities as Lord. So there are two knowers of the field. Field is the body, and the knowers of the field, there are two: our soul and the super soul, which are situated in our heart. So God is the ultimate shelter of everyone, and soul and super soul are separate, are different. We got to remember that. Verse 19, Lord says that the fields of activities, that is the body, knowledge and the knowable, have been summarily described by Lord. Only the devotees can understand this thoroughly and attain to my nature. So, summary of the body, knowledge, the knowable have been described by Lord. Knowledge is of the three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. So all these together are called the Vijnana, or the science of knowledge, Prabhupada tells us. And if you have got the unalloyed devotion to Lord directly, then you can understand it, that we are always subordinate to Lord, and we are covered with the material consciousness, but as soon as we transfer our consciousness to Lord, we start to understand Lord immediately. This will be further explained in chapter 15, that understanding the knowledge is just the beginning to understand the knowledge about Lord, and that is the beginning of the devotional service, and also understanding the devotional service perfectly. So if you have got faith in Lord, if you have understood your situation in relation to Lord, then you can understand Bhagavad Gita as well, and attain the supreme goal, which is the nature of Supreme Lord, and can understand properly and also achieve the ultimate goal of serving the Lord after this life, and not coming back to this material jungle and go through birth, death, old age, and disease, and keep on doing that from one species to another. So we will carry on with our discussion next time from verses 20, Shlok 20 onwards. Thank you for joining. Wish you all a very happy weekend ahead. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.